In this helicopter of ours, where do we start? Well, up there at 30, 40,000 feet, there's really only one place to start. Purpose. What's the purpose of your business? What's it there for? And I don't mean mission or vision. I mean higher in the helicopter than that. What's your business there for? Now, I used to run a PLC, and you might say to me, PLCs, everyone knows it's all about shareholder value and return on equity. But of course, these days, it's an awful lot more than that. And here's another one. I did some work a while back with Woolmark here in the UK, and I was working with their top team, and I said, so, what's the purpose of Woolmark? And they said, well, we're here to promote wool, which sort of sounds fair enough, doesn't it? But it actually took us 2.5 hours to establish their purpose. Do you know what Woolmark's purpose is? Their purpose is to try and ensure that the price paid at auction for wool in Sydney, Australia, is as high as possible, because Woolmark is 100% owned by Australian sheep farmers. And they didn't know that in the UK. They could have been doing a promotion of Welsh wool totally at variance to their purpose. So you sort of start to see how important this is. I work with the top team of a large Dubai manufacturing corporation, half owned by the Dubai government, half owned by the the Abu Dhabi government. And I was working with their top team, and I just stood at the flip chart and said, so, okay, so let's start with the purpose. What's the purpose of this business? And one of the directors said, well, I guess it's return on equity. And I said, yeah, fine, how much? And somebody else said, well, I guess 50%. And somebody else said, no, that's not what we're here for. It's all about growth. It's all about size. That's what we're here for. And then somebody else said, no. Our purpose is to employ Emiratis. That's our purpose. And the CEO stopped me and he said, Roger, you're absolutely right. We have no idea why the two governments own us. I will find out. And I used to go there about every couple of months, and it got to about, 14 or 15 months in. And I walked in and the CEO said, Roger, he said, I still don't know why they own us. And that's why we're in a mess, isn't it? I said, absolutely. If you don't know where it is you're trying to get to, how on earth do you stand any chance of getting there? So I guess the first takeaway from this morning is, if you are running a business or involved in running a business for somebody else, then you have got to know what the purpose is. And the only people who can tell you are the owners, the shareholders, the trustees. You have got to know what the purpose is, because businesses can be run for all kinds of reasons. And when I was in the corporate world, you know what? I came within a whisker of losing my job because I'd made an assumption. I just assumed the businesses I were running, what they were looking for was sustained profitable growth. And in fact, they weren't. They wanted something completely different. But what about private businesses? What about family businesses? Well, I guess the first question I always ask is, what do you intend doing with the business ultimately? Do you intend selling it or passing it on to your successors? And what I often get is, well, if we got a decent offer, we'd probably sell. But you know what? You probably won't get a decent offer unless you spend 3 years, ideally 5 years, running your business totally differently, because you've now got a whole new purpose. Every one of these areas you're going to be looking at through a new pair of eyes. And believe me, it's incredibly difficult. I've had clients who've gone through this process. I just seem to spend my time smacking the hand of the owner saying, no, that's not the way you think anymore. You've now got to have a total focus on selling this business, if that's what you want to do, for the highest possible price in 3 years' time or 5 years' time. But what if you're not selling the business? What then? Well, what I would say to you is, you need to have something called a shareholder meeting. That's not a board meeting. It's not a management meeting. You need a shareholder meeting. And I would say, ideally, you need it a couple of times a year. And the very first item on the agenda needs to be, what's the purpose of this business? What's it here for? I was a non-exec of a family business in Essex. And when I joined, it had been started by the father, who was now dead. And when I joined, there were 2 sons running the business. There was a mother and a brother and a sister who were also in the business, who were outside the business. as shareholders, and it was just sort of kicking off, if you know what I mean. The two guys running the business were sort of mumbling and saying, well, we're generating all this additional wealth and they're sharing it the same as us. That's not fair. And the three that were not in the business was sort of mumbling and going, well, we never get a dividend, so what's the point? So we set up a shareholder meeting. In fact, it took us, amazingly, something like 4 or 5 shareholder meetings until we got a purpose. By the way, people often ask, you know, when a company goes through a management buyout, often a relatively ordinary group of managers suddenly seems to perform. And how does that happen? Well, for me, it's really obvious. You know, the private equity house, the venture capitalists, from the moment they invest, they have one focus and one focus only, their exit. 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, a minimum of 35% per annum compound growth. And they get the entire board to have that laser beam focus. And if you can have that laser beam focus, believe me, you stand a very good chance of getting there. So what I would say to you is you need to get your purpose to a sentence and then get it to half a sentence. And what we ended up with in this family business in Essex was a purpose that sounds really mundane. Our purpose was sustained profitable growth with a target of 15% return on sales and normally pay a dividend. That was it. But you know what? You can look at the financial results of that business and you can see where we made that decision, because suddenly everyone is pulling in the same direction. And it really does work like that. But there's a complication, because these days you don't need one purpose, you need 3. You need a financial purpose, you need a social purpose, and that's all about your societal vision and your values. And you need a brand purpose. Brands used to be all about big companies, not anymore. That's all about your customer aspiration. Now, if you're a charity or a not-for-profit, then it's the social vision that is absolutely preeminent, crystal clear. You know exactly why you're there. But you cannot ignore the other 2. I've worked with a number of charities, and it's not unusual for that financial purpose not to be nailed as it should be. You know, I'm pleased to see increasingly I'm coming across charities where they recognize that if they're going to do the very best for their beneficiaries, they need to run the operation like the very best commercial operation with a financial purpose that is second to none. If you're a commercial business, like I think the majority of us are here today, then the financial purpose is preeminent. But you can't ignore the other 2. Increasingly these days, talent will only work for people whose values they share. Those values of yours are absolutely vital. In this last year, we've seen the heroes and the villains, haven't we? We've seen those people who didn't walk the talk, those organizations that didn't walk the talk of their values. And we've very much seen those organizations whose values were absolutely there for us all to see, to try and help the nation through the pandemic. And that brand purpose as well can add significant added value to whatever it is that you're doing. I work with a firm of architects in London, slightly unusual share structure. There were 6 shareholders, 4 on the board and 2 weren't. And again, I was working with their top team of about 12 or 14. And the same sort of story. I started on the flip chart and I said, what's the values of this architectural practice? And I got all sorts. I got Save the Planet. I got be the best architects in the world. And it went on and on. I'm sort of onto the second page. And I'm sort of, okay, where do we go from here? And there was just a very quiet voice, and it was the woman who ran their administration department. And very quietly, she said, I'm a shareholder in this business, and I'd quite like a return that's better than putting my money in the building society. And there was a silence, and then the CEO went, wow, we've never thought of that before. And it's in the front of my mind because he rang me the other day and he said, you know what, Roger, that was the turning point for the business. Absolutely it was. There is only one way to grow a business. There's only one way to grow a charity. There's only one way to grow a member association. And that's by generating something called profit that you reinvest in part or in whole into the business. There is no other way. it's time for you to do some work, please. We're going to put you into the breakout rooms now. And what I'd like you to do, there'll be 5 or 6 of you, I guess, something like that in each breakout room. Just ask each other the question, what's your purpose? And what I'd like you to do is to sort of mentally give yourself a mark out of 10. Is it high enough in this helicopter of mine? And is it absolutely crystal clear, this purpose of yours? Is it half a sentence? So please, Heather will run it for you. Just 10 minutes, please. And can you try and make sure everyone gets an opportunity? Over to you. So how was that, everybody? Anyone give themselves a mark below 10? Put your hands up if you did. I can't see your name. No, for some reason I can't. Okay, so 1 or 2 there gave themselves marks below 10. Is it something that you can sort, do you think? Or is it just something you haven't thought about before? Anyone in particular give us an answer to that?
Don't be shy, guys.
I can give you an answer, Roger,
Go on then.
For mine.
Whoever you are.
So I'm Joanna from People Puzzles. So
hi, Joanna. Yes.
Hello. So funnily enough, I'm at one of our annual meetings for the company, and we had together. And yesterday, we actually said what our purpose was. Right. And you love this, Roger, because it was at least 3 sentences that I then shortened. So I'm happy to tell you the long one and the short one if that's of any interest.
Yeah, give us the short one, please.
Okay, so the short one that I got to was that we're here to liberate the UK's SMEs from the worry of people issues.
Okay, so you're a charity then?
No.
Oh, well, money isn't mentioned. Money isn't mentioned, so you must be a charity. Well done. No. Thank you, People Puzzles. It's the latest charity we've got. Guys, we don't have time to spend much more on this, but you've got to be sure you're clear about what the purpose is, what the vision is. The purpose is maybe confidential only to the owners. The vision is what you share with all the stakeholders. And if I may, that sounded a bit more like a vision than a purpose.
Roger, you're right. You know, right. I need you to help me get to the purpose. Yeah.
Give me a call. Anyway, we really must move on. My apologies for this. In this helicopter of ours, some people get frustrated because they want to get down in that detail again, and I can only allow that a little bit, I'm afraid. So let's assume we've got this purpose nailed. We're absolutely crystal clear about this purpose. We've done a half a sentence. Everyone understands. Everyone knows that's what we're working to. And every single strategic decision we take, we put across that filter. Is it a step along the way to that purpose, yes or no? There's something else as well. I worked with a Vistage group over in East Anglia just before shutdown, I think it was. And we're sort of halfway through the morning, and I've been talking about this. And there was a guy in the room who, as it were, was no longer in the room, if you understand me. And we got to the end of the day, and the chair, Mike's equivalent, said, Richard, we seem to lose you earlier in the day. And he said, well, yeah, he said, what Roger had been talking about purpose sort of struck a chord with me. He said, as you know, I run a 3rd generation toy business. I've been running it for 3 years and we're getting nowhere. I'm sick of it. He said, I'm absolutely sick of it. He says, my father keeps interfering. My aunts wander into the company and tell people to do stuff. I've had enough. And it just so happens we've got a board meeting tomorrow of all the shareholders. So I've torn up the agenda. We're going to have one item on the agenda, its purpose. And he said, it's going to be like electing the Pope. We're going to sit there till the smoke comes out of the chimney. So I said, good luck, Richard. Please let me know how it went. And he rang me up a couple of days later and he said, Roger, he said, it was absolute hell, he said, but we got there. We absolutely nailed it. We are now crystal clear about the purpose. And he said, you know what? Something I was not expecting. I physically felt the stress fall off my shoulders. That's what this is all about, guys. You have got to do it. So where next in our helicopter, a few thousand feet lower, let's have a word about aspiration. You know, if I was to ask you what was the biggest soft drinks brand in the world, you'd say to me, Coca-Cola. And if you were a bank manager and I came along to you and said, look, I've got this great idea. I want to take on Coca-Cola head on, give us some money. I suspect you'd probably say no. But now have a look at this from our helicopter. These are some figures I've put together. And they are the retail price per gallon in the USA of various liquids. So here we go. Gasoline is about $3 a gallon. Milk is about $4 a gallon. Coca-Cola is about the same, $4.50 a gallon. I'm just going to have to move something over. There we go. Evian water is $6 a gallon. So if you're running Evian water in New York, you're going to be ringing Paris, aren't you? Give us a bonus, give us a bonus. Look how clever I am. I'm selling water at a higher price than Coke. Don't do it, not just yet. Budweiser, that's pretty well all water anyway, I think. That's about $12 a gallon. Now just look at this. Just look at this. Red Bull is $24 a gallon. It's sold as a high caffeine drink. In reality, the caffeine content of one can of Red Bull is exactly the same as one cup of coffee. It's sold in 152 countries, and Coke and Pepsi are wetting themselves trying to compete. But why am I showing you this? Well, I guess there's a couple of reasons. You know, running business is about taking risk. That's our job as business leaders. And I'm sure Red Bull will say to you, probably one of the biggest risks they ever took was setting their price at that level, way back at the beginning. That was the big decision they took, and it has allowed them to do all kinds of things. But also, just imagine if going into America, they'd done what the business schools would have told them to do. Go and hire one of the top accounting consultancy firms, give them, I don't know, $500,000 probably. What would they have said? They would have said, coming into America, selling a carbonated drink, don't even think about selling a carbonated drink unless it's in a standard US can. And by the way, set your prices just below Coke. Did they do that? Hell, did they do that? They set their prices 5 times higher than Coke. And that's what exceptional companies do. They set their own standards. You know, every company I've ever run, at some point or other, my finance director, my CFO has come to me and said, well, look at the margins we're making. They're 2% better than the industry average. They're 1.5% better than our biggest competitor. And I'd always say, I'm not interested. We're not going to dumb ourselves down to the industry standard. We're not going to set our standards by the competition. We'll set our own standards. Now, I guess Red Bull were perhaps one of the first disruptors. There's disruptors all over the place now, and you can be a disruptor. Please don't get yourself set by convincing yourself you can only do whatever everyone else is doing in your sector. We can aspire to anything. So now what? Well, we do need to drop the in our helicopter another few thousand feet, and this is absolutely critical. And we need to look at what are the principal drivers for the business. And I'm keeping this really simple for the purposes of this morning. If you're in the commodity business, you're selling on price, aren't you? You're selling on price for a standard product. There's some obvious commodity businesses, but ones like budget airlines, for example. We would never fly Ryanair, would we, unless they had the lowest prices. But it's only for the standard product. The moment you step out of line, you want it red instead of gray, you'll pay through the nose. That's the way these people think. That's the way they operate. It's all about price. But for the rest of us, non-commodity businesses, is I'm calling us, it's all about perceived added value. And those are really important words. It may actually be added value, but there's a perception as well. Why do you go to Waitrose and pay 14% more for exactly the same basket of goods as you might pay for in Tesco? We can rationalize it all out, but at the end of the day, it's all about a perception of added value. And if that's our driver for our business, we need to seek infectious communications. Those aren't my words, but I just like them very much. Which takes us on to the next point. And it's going to be time for you to do some more work in a moment. What are your 3 value propositions? Because they're more important today than they have ever been before. And we'll go into that some more in a moment. What are the 3 reasons why I should buy from you rather than the competition? And are they absolutely on the tip of your tongue, on the tip of the tongue of every single person in your business? Just before lockdown, I spoke at a conference of letting agents, property letting agents. There was about 250 there. There were people who had, I don't know, 50 houses up to people who had 2,000 houses that they let out. And I have some buy-to-let properties around the country, and I use agents on all of them. And never, ever have any of these agents actually really shown on their websites or in speaking to me anything about any value propositions. And in fact, the whole culture of that business is if you have a little go at them, they'll just give you a discount. And I did some homework with all these people in the room, and none of their websites showed none of them showed any value propositions. And I said to them, look, from the point of view of a landlord, I'm after 3 things. I want to hear you say you're going to maximize my income. I want to hear you say that you're going to anticipate problems, because void periods are death to a landlord. And the final one is, I want you to say to me that you've got the best, most reliable tenants. Now, if I read those things on a website, I'm likely to go to you. And I really wasn't expecting the reaction I got in the room. The reaction in the room was like, that was a bolt from heaven. They just simply hadn't thought about it. But the same applies to all of us. You need to have absolutely on the tip of your tongue, what are the 3 reasons why anyone should buy from you rather than the competition? And if you are not in a commodity business, guys, none of those can be price. I repeat, none of them can be price. So breakout rooms again, please. And what I'd like you to do is just that. Ask each other the question. What are your, let's just go for one for a start. What's your value proposition? What is the one reason why I should buy from you? And please, you can have a card, you can have a cross card. If it's motherhood and apple pie, it's not acceptable. It's got to be something that is genuinely going to differentiate you from the competition. So over to you. It'll be about 6 or 7 minutes, so you need to move fairly quickly if you don't mind. So how was that, everybody? Anyone want to share with us a value proposition that absolutely nails it? Either yours or somebody else's in your group.
Don't be shy, guys. Somebody must have.
I'll offer you ours. Whether it's the best or anything else, there are others to discuss.
There's no prizes, don't worry.
Our objective really is to be the first choice of our customer and to outperform our competition in all aspects of business and to achieve growth and profitability. And that kind of sums up where we're going.
That sounds more like the purpose to me than the value proposition, if I may.
Well, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think it's, in terms of the value proposition, it needs to address why I should buy from you rather than somebody else. And I don't think going to buy from you because you're making more money than somebody else, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, it's the outperformance of our competition, and that doesn't. If we can outperform our competition and be a choice of our customer, then price becomes a secondary thing rather than the initial thing. That's our belief.
Okay. Anyone else got us a value proposition that's going to absolutely make me break your door down and buy whatever it is you're selling?
Best uptime in the industry.
Hey, and what's your business?
Strapping machines.
Brilliant, Kay. Gay, I used to be in manufacturing, and uptime is what it's all about. I love it. I will go further if I've read that. Brilliant. Anyone else?
Come on, brave folks. Somebody else must have a good.
Have we got any lawyers with us? I'd love to hear why I should go to you rather than a competitor, Mr. Solicitor, or Mrs. Solicitor, or Ms. Solicitor.
Ed, there's a good one for you if you're around there. Can't see your faces.
Well, I mean, I think the uptime comment is valid. It's responsiveness and accessibility, but at the same time, it's solution finding and risk minimization.
Doesn't everyone say that though?
Well, yes. So how do we differentiate ourselves? People buy from people, I suppose. So we excel in finding good people.
Okay. See, I think everyone says that too, don't they? I don't know. Join in. Anyone else? Join in. I'm just here as the devil's advocate, which is easy for me. I appreciate, but genuinely, when you're in an industry like typically the professions, you know, the accountancy or lawyers, how do you differentiate yourselves? I mean, I did some work with a legal practice down in Brighton who totally turned everything on its head, and they've done amazing stuff down there, and they've changed the model, and they've got people beating their path to their door. So, you know, it sort of is possible, but I do think it needs often us to give a lot more thought than we sometimes give to these things, because it is very easy just to have the pleasantries and the mother and the apple pie. Someone else, it's about time someone disagreed with me. Come on.
We're sorry, Ian Harris from Aber, Roger, because I know you're
Ian.
struggling to see the names on the board. So we're an architectural practice. We're exclusively a business-to-business practice. We deal with blue chips, and we're in the sort of top 100 in the UK, just to paint you. So so I've just jotted down some. It's pulling together threads that we've been talking about in the business for the last couple of years. Actually, interesting to pull them together in one place. But I've written down maximise return on investment for your project. Because you're a business and spending money because you want to achieve something. Anticipate problems and solve them before we're asked, and hand over buildings that delight for the long term.
I love that. Ian, that is brilliant. I love it. I love it, because we'll be going through this some more in a moment. But at the end of the day, these days, what you want is someone to read those three things, probably on your website, and go, actually, I want to learn more. That's all you're seeking to achieve here. And that would make me, I think, want to know more about your organization. Like that. Anyone else? Let's have a last one, please.
So Roger, I work for a recruitment business in the East Midlands.
Yep.
And I would say we're the top rated recruitment agency on Google, which gives us access to the top talent to fill the roles that you require. Okay.
The second part of that sentence was the more interesting to me. You have access to the best talent, and that certainly sounds interesting to me. I think again, I've worked with a lot of recruitment businesses, and a bit similar to property agents, I have to say, where I have found an awful lot of recruitment agencies are prepared to discount just because you've said you know you have a bit of a go at them, and you mustn't. You know, that's the last thing that any of us should do. You know, our prices, your fees are where they are, your commission, whatever it is, where it is because of the value you give. And I would argue the moment that you start discounting that, i.e. reducing your price, the message you're sending out is we're not going to give the value we thought we were. You know, don't do it, do other stuff. And just as a general comment, if I may, to everyone, if you're not in the commodity business, and that probably is the majority of us, I think, just think 14 times before you ever drop your prices or discount it. They all mean the same thing. You know, if you've got to do something for a client, give stuff. And what reminded me of that, I ran a workshop for a group of recruiting companies. And I sort of said what I've just said. And I'm thinking, I'm not sure what they're going to be able to find that they can give that costs them very little, but has a high perceived value to the client rather than money. And one of the guys I always remember said to me, he said, we pay an annual license fee to do psychometric testing, and we just pay one fee. It doesn't matter how many candidates we do. So it's the easiest thing in the world for us in future. If someone's pushing us for a discount or whatever, we can say, I tell you what, we'll do psychometric testing for all your clients. And it's just thinking those things through. And the final little story here, it was a Vistage group over in Bath where there happened to be a couple of guys in the group. I can't for the life of me remember what their business was, but they got contracts of sort of a couple of £1 million, that sort of size of contract. And we had this discussion we've just had, and it was lovely. Mike's equivalent, John Penn, who was the chairman there, came back to me a couple of months later, and he said, these two guys who were in this company, he said, I just thought you'd like to know, that they got an inquiry come in for a £2.5 million job from a client who they knew very well, who they had traditionally given a 20% discount to for no reason, it would seem to me. But anyway, a 20% discount. And just before doing that, they said, well, hang on a minute, let's just have a think. And they spent a couple of hours looking at what they could give rather than money. And they came up with all kinds of things that would not cost them very much, if anything. And they got the contract without 1 penny of discount, you know. But never let salespeople do this. Salespeople will always go for the lowest price. They'll always discount. Never give them price discretion, if I may. Okay, so let's press on then. Where do we go next in this whole helicopter of ours? We're crystal clear about our purpose. We're very clear about our aspiration. We know what the drivers of the business are, and we've got these 3 value propositions now, which everyone in our company knows. And I really mean that, by the way, everyone. You know, if anyone who works in your company is, you know, meets someone at the school run in the morning, they say, who do you work for? The answer needs to be, I work for so-and-so, and bang, bang, bang. Now, you know, us Brits love to be modest, but we've got to stop being modest. We've got to be a bit more American, German, or Japanese, in my opinion. And we've got to really start saying, yes, I work for them and they are the best in the business. So now where do we go? Well, I came across this piece of information. Microsoft's research is showing that in an increasing number of market sectors, 85% of the sale has been completed by the time the client first makes contact with the company. And that got me thinking, what does that really mean for us? So this is my take on it. See if it makes sense for you. So here we go. I'm calling it the discovery purchase process. So what's the first thing we do these days? If we're looking to buy something, if we're looking to find a new company, what's the first thing we do?
Internet.
Thank you. And that word beginning with G?
Google.
Absolutely. We Google. And there's research been done, by the way, which shows that B2B and B2C, both B2B and B2C, something between 80 and 90% of this, the first thing we do is Google. So it isn't just B2C. And what I would say to you is, you've got to own your Google page. What do I mean by that? Well, if I may quote myself as an example, I had some work done firstly to find out what people are most likely to type into Google to find what I do. And I now work incredibly hard, and it's not necessarily about spending money, to make sure that if you type those words into Google, I appear twice as often as anyone else in the world, because my market is the world. And by the way, increasingly, if you type those words into YouTube, at least 50% more of my videos appear. And that's what you've got to seek to achieve. And it means getting that as tight as possible. If you can get the description of what you do as tight as possible and geographically as tight as possible, you've got to appear on the screen when I type those words in. If I've got to scroll down, I'm not going to do it. And let's be honest, if you don't appear on the screen, I'm going to start looking at someone who has. It is actually that simple. And I think this is more important than it has been for a very, very long time. So assuming you, as I put it, own your Google page, where next? Well, that's going to take me to your website. And the first thing I would say is your website has got to reflect your personality. And my experience is so often they don't. The company I talked about, I was a non-exec director of over in Essex. They were very proud of the fact they were a family business. It was all about people and so on. But you looked at their website, it was all written in the third person and there wasn't a single picture of a person on it. There was a mismatch. And I find that all the time because, you know, in the past, websites were often delegated, heaven knows who, and even the copy was delegated. Do this little test for me tonight, if you don't mind. Go to your website and read it out loud. Does it sound like your company? If it doesn't, get it rewritten. Because I would say to you that in my opinion, your website is now significant orders of magnitude more important now than it was as recently as maybe 2 years ago. Because if I've got a choice here, I've come to your website, you don't even know I'm there, And I'm just gonna, if it's not of interest to me, I'm gonna go back to one of the other people at Google. So it's got to have the personality. But the next bit is the really important bit as well. You've got to describe what you do, and describe what you do in words of one syllable. So often we love using jargon, our own industry. We assume whoever's looking to buy whatever it is we're buying understands what it's all about, and they don't. And I would say to you, particularly in this post-COVID world, there are lots of new potential customers out there. There's lots of changes gone on. Nothing is the same. Lots of us are starting with a new sheet of paper. You've got to describe what you do in a way that, I don't know, your granny would understand, or maybe even a 60-year-old son would understand. Words of one syllable, what you do, really simple stuff. And then those 3 value propositions we've just talked about have got to hit me between the eyes. I've got to have a very good reason to carry on looking at your website. And that's what's going to convince me. Those 3 things that were being said to us earlier, I can't remember the one now, the architects, for example, I'm going to go, wow, to myself, that's pretty compelling. That word compelling is important. Is your website compelling in that way? Because it needs to be. I'm then going to go further into your website and have a look at the individual products. And this is something I find a lot of people miss. Those individual products have got to have a value proposition. I was chairman of a business up until relatively recently. We did baby stuff, high chairs, car seats, prams, pushchairs. And it was a highly creative business, and they turned it into a fashion statement. So we had 2 seasons in the year, and we had new designs and all the rest. You went to their website, and it was absolutely magnificent. And the choice of products was unbelievable. There were not only the physical designs of stuff, but there was the artistic designs, there was the fashion designs of stuff. And there was really no way of understanding between them. Why was this one £300 for a pram, and why was that one £210 for a pram? What were the value propositions between the two? Was it just the visual look, or was it more than that? And it was like it was too much. And we were getting potential customers who go, oh, that's just too much. I'll just go back where there's not so much choice. So that again has got to be crystal clear. Right, now what? Because all the time here, we're trying to make people continue looking at us, even though we don't even know they're there. If we're looking at a hotel, next thing we do is have a look at TripAdvisor, don't we? Increasingly, the same applies for absolutely anything that we're seeking to buy. We're going to go up into cyberspace and have a look at all that lot. And that's got to be compelling. You know, a friend of mine, he runs a training business, quite a large training business, and he only works with the top banks. Is that 4 or 5 these days? I'm not sure. And he was telling me he'd picked up a very big contract recently, some millions of pounds over the next 3 years from one of the top banks. And he was talking to the woman who'd given him the business, and he said, "Why us?" And she said, "It's a really good question." She said, "We went through the whole analysis and we ended up with 2 of you, and we really couldn't split between you and another company." She said, "What I did in the end was I had a look at your personal LinkedIn profile, and I looked at the personal LinkedIn profile of the CEO of the competitor. You had more recommendations. That's why you've got the work." That's the world we're living in now, ladies and gentlemen. Your personal LinkedIn profile is really important. You've got to write it in a way that is different to the way you might write Facebook, or you might write on your website. It's that important. So these value, I've lost my words. In cyberspace, all this lot has got to be compelling, but make it appropriate to your business. I mean, I hadn't read this before, but Pinterest, for example, I think it's something like 80% of the people looking at Pinterest are women, and 69% are looking to buy. If that's your area, that's the one that you've got to focus on. Basically, with cyberspace, with these social medias, you're able to do 4 things. You're able to demonstrate what it is you do. You're able to highlight those 3 value propositions we've just been talking about. Again, why you rather than somebody else? You're able to maybe answer some of the questions people are likely to ask before they've even asked them. And finally, if you've got some sort of interactive part, you may be able to understand your customers better than you did before. It's absolutely vital. You should have a YouTube channel. All of us should have a YouTube channel. You should have hundreds, and I mean hundreds of videos on your YouTube channel. And please, they don't need to look professional. It's been shown that if they look a bit amateurish, people are likely to believe them more. Just a 3-minute video. Maybe they're just videos of the people, experts you've got in your company doing what they do. It's all part of the process. You're not overtly selling. You know, I know a company that gives £50 to anyone who does a video just on their iPhone, and it ends up on their YouTube channel. You need to do it, guys. Right. Now what? Well, we come back to something that we talked about at the beginning of today. I said that increasingly talent will not work for a company whose values they don't share, but increasingly the same is for us when we're buying. Increasingly, we won't buy from an organization whose values we don't share. You know, we're going to think twice about buying a Volkswagen if they test their exhaust on live monkeys and then frig the results. Maybe we are going to think twice about giving money to Oxfam with what they did in Haiti. You know, those values are vitally important. I've got to be able to look at your values. They've got to be real values, not motherhood and apple pie again. And I've got to be able to see that you walk the talk. And again, I may go back up into cyberspace and have a look at glass doors. Is it glass doors it's called, where employees talk about their company and the values? Those values have got to be crystal clear. And I've got to be prepared to do business with you. Okay. I think that's probably this 85% point that Microsoft was talking about. That's my thinking. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but I think that's the 85% point. And as I keep repeating, you don't even know they're there at this point. I've done all that in nanoseconds, probably. Now what? Well, now I'm going to contact you for the first time because I've got some clarification questions. And please, you've got to be able to respond, firstly, using whatever medium they want to use, not what you want to use. I was interested the other day to see that the Vice Chancellor of Exeter University has said they're giving up using email because it's out of date. Nobody uses email anymore. And that's not just for the students. If you want to do business with Exeter University in future, you can't use email. You've got to use WhatsApp, Facebook, or you've got to phone them. So you've got to be able to respond using whatever media they want to use. And there are increasing numbers of media. You might have a chatbot, it might be anything. You've got to be able to respond, and you've got to respond with a smile, because you can tell when someone's smiling, can't you? Not just on a phone call, but also in other sorts of messages. And you've got to answer their questions. Little piece of information for you, if I may, in the whatever it is now, 16 or 17 years I've been working for myself. Every single client I've had, I've gone onto their website, I've clicked their contact us button and basically sent an inquiry. And my stats over that period are appalling. 2 out of 10, I get an answer to my question, and I get a smile, and I get a response that makes me want to carry on with that company. 2 out of 10. 4 out of 10, I get a reply, but it's a sort of a standard reply. It's here's our sales literature, here's our standard stuff. They haven't really bothered answering my question. And indeed, often that reply is taking days. 2 out of 10, the reply came 3 weeks later. And the rest, I didn't get a reply at all. That is just simply appalling. If you look at what I've just gone through here, in marketing terms, I am an exceptionally hot lead. You've got to treat me like an exceptionally hot lead. And that means you've got to set up metrics for your response to any contact. And you've got to have the very best people responding so that I get a reply that gives me the answer I want, because then we're at the 100% the decision. Now, that may be to give you the order. It may be to put you on a vendor list. It may be to ask you to come for a pitch. And by the way, what I'm seeing these days is a renaissance of pitching. all this lot's been done without seeing anybody. So then they want you to come and do a pitch in person. That is happening even more. And the skills of pitching, by the way, again, have often been lost. And if you can get them right, you can really improve your likelihood of success. So there we are. First question is, does that make some sense to you? And assuming it does, this is time for you to do some work again, because what I'd like you to do is to mark yourselves out of 100. So there's out of 20. I'm just going to put the QR code on the screen. At least I thought I was. Oh, why isn't it there? Oh, there we are. There's the QR code. You need to download that if you haven't already, guys, please. So let me just explain. There's 20 out of 10 as to whether you own your Google page. There's there's marks out of 20 for your website. There's marks out of 20 for cyberspace, marks out of 20 for your values, and a mark out of 20 for how good you are at this clarification response. And that all adds up to 100. Now, if you go into that QR code and into our app, have a look at the customer, and you'll find what's in front of you here on the screen. And there's some sliders. There's a slider for each one of these green boxes of mine, and it will add up to out of 100 for you, so you don't have to do it yourselves. So if you wouldn't mind, have a little think about that. We've got plenty of time. And then we're going to plug that into a little survey. So we'll see everybody's results, not by grouping. Okay, so let's have a look at this. We've got 9% of you, which is 3, between 81 and 100. That's fabulous. I mean, a question actually for everybody. You know, what score out of 100 would let you sleep at night, do you reckon?
81.
Funny you should say that. I think you're, I mean, you know, running business is about trends as much as it is about finite values. So the important thing is you check it again in 3 months' time or 6 months' time, and it's gone up a notch or two. But yeah, I would agree with you. I would have thought 80, above 80 will let you sleep at night, which means we do have an awful lot of insomniacs here today. 71 to 80, 31%, 56% between 50 and 70. Could I ask somebody, please, in the 50 to 70 group, you know, what are your 2 lowest scores? What are they for, please?
I was in that group, and the ones that are the lowest are the values of your organization stated clearly in plain language on the website.
Okay.
And the other one that I scored 10 on was, do you have a quick response rate to queries coming from your website? But I would just qualify that one. We very rarely get engagement by that part of our website.
Okay.
So
sorry, what's your name, please?
I'm Chris Blythe.
Chris, hi, Chris. Okay, just taking those I mean, the first one first, what can you do about that?
Well, we can improve what we're saying on our website. We can get the message.
It's as simple as that, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
And when are you going to do it by, Chris? Because there's no point you coming here unless you commit to something, you know.
We'll be certainly trying to get it done this week.
Wonderful. And the last one, I mean, I'm inevitably going to be the cynic. When you say we don't get very many people who come through that medium, you know, I have to say at the moment, you know, the generation that's coming on that's going to take over from you and the other people, they will, because that's the way they think. You know, that's the world we're living in now. And I would suggest to you that even if things on this continuum here are not happening in your industry at the moment, I suspect they're going to. But again, I'm very happy to be disagreed with.
No, I think you're right. I think the way communication moves, yes, it's most likely that will.
Okay, could I take one other then in the 50 to 70 range? You know what? Just the 2 lowest. What were they, please?
I scored low. This is Catherine, also
Hi, Catherine.
Hi. Is it very clear on your website what you do and why people should do business with you?
Right.
I think our website has got a lot of information on it, but you would have to already know what we do.
There you
To know
go.
what you're looking at.
There you go. Interesting.
And the other one was also the response rate to queries coming in
Yeah.
from the website, just because of the process that it goes through, and then we've got to send it on to somebody else. We're probably not quick on that at all.
Yeah. And by the way, a lot of, even today, I hate to say, even today, a lot of companies that, particularly the contact us button, goes into junk and it just disappears, you know, and hopefully, I mean, if you're agreeing with what I've put here, hopefully you're seeing that suddenly all this lot is incredibly important. Right, so let's remind ourselves, we've had a look at purpose at 30,000 feet, aspiration at 25,000. We've looked at our value propositions at, I don't know, 15,000. And now we're really down relatively low, but looking at the big picture of this whole process of how people prospect, let's be honest, how they are looking to seek to find someone to buy from. And this is the process they've gone through. And I think we've said to ourselves, quite a lot of us have got an awful lot of work to do here. And can I please say to you, this needs to get right up to the top. I'm not sure this is something you can delegate. And even those words that are written on the website, you have got to be involved in that, and those words really reflecting the personality of your company and your organization and the things you really want to say. So what I'd like to finish with today is a model, and it's my favorite model. It's called the Change House. And what we have is a house with 4 rooms. And the argument is that any organization, whether it's a company, whether it's a department, whether it's a team or indeed an individual, at any moment in time, you are in one of these 4 rooms. And furthermore, you can only move from room to room in a predetermined way. So let me put some meat on the bone. The room of contentment. This is all about, we know what we're doing. We've been the business leader now for the last 10 years. Our business model is the only business model. Go away. That's where, in my experience, any government-owned organization has great difficulty not being. That's where Caterpillar was when Komatsu came along. That's where I was going to say Marks and Sparks, but Marks and Sparks, I think 15 years ago, maybe even longer. I don't think they were in the Contentment Lounge. They were probably in the Sun Lounge. And this is where you lie back and you go, oh, it's just so easy making money. It's just so easy making money. Arrogant, conceited. I can even remember, because I've got grey hair, Marks and Spencer's saying, we will never accept credit cards and we will never be in service stations. Look at us now. Where we go next, and there's no choice, where we go next is the room of denial. And the room of denial is where there's lots of finger pointing, because of course it's all somebody else's fault. It's Brexit. It's the pandemic, it's the weather, it's the exchange rate, it's the government, it's the lack of staff, it's HGV drivers, it's absolutely anyone but me. And it's a bit like being an alcoholic, you know, half the battle is recognizing you are one. You need someone who says to you, look, sunshine, I think you're in denial and you need to do something about it. Now, that advice needs to be wholly objective and unsentimental. You won't get that from your family if you're in a family business. You might get it from a non-exec director. And I'm not asked to say this, but what I see in Vistage groups is you've got people who are wholly objective, just saying to their mates, I think you're in that denial room and you need to do something about it. Because if you don't, you're in the dungeon of denial. And that's when the receivers are in and you're still going, oh, don't worry, it's just a blip, it's just a blip. So assuming that catalyst does happen, and in a larger organization, that's often a new chief executive who in Belbin terms is a shaper who's saying, that's where we're going, follow me, follow me. But as I say, in a smaller company, it's often an outsider of some sort that says you need to get yourself sorted out. Where you go next is the room of confusion. This is where you're sort of half doing it the old way and half doing it the new way. It's very confusing for the employees. There's revolving doors. There's new people coming. There's old people going. There's rumors swirling around. So leadership is at a real premium here. You've got to keep repeating the message. This is where we're going. Follow me, follow me. One of the dangers is the employees say to themselves, look, for years we've been told we're going in this direction. Now we're being told to go in this direction. Do you know the safest thing we can do? Get our heads down. And then they're in the paralysis pit and the whole place seizes up. So you've got to keep repeating the message. There's also a danger of the wrong direction door. Because it is so confusing and so painful, you see a little bit of light over there and you go, oh yeah, that's got to be the way out, and out you run. But it's not the way. But where you're trying to get to is the room of renewal. The room of renewal is where you challenge every paradigm in your business. There is absolutely nothing you do simply because you've always done it that way. Even if it's the crown jewels your business was built on, you pick them up, you look at them, you go, are they right for the future? Yes or no? And if the answer is no, you throw them away. It's also where you are always raising the bar. You are always saying, yes, but we can do better. But we can do better. But you know, there's a danger when you're in that renewal room, because the room of contentment looks very attractive. It's very alluring. There's a big suction trying to suck you away. And what I'd say to you is, if you're running a business or if you're involved in running a business, I don't think there is anything more important than working out not just how to get into that room of renewal, but even more important is how you stay there. I'm often asked, you know, what are the characteristics I see of a business that manages to stay in renewal? And well, everyone's different. I mean, I've come across businesses that spend all their time going round and round, and they do it in a controlled way. And maybe that's all right. It's when it's uncontrolled, perhaps it's not. But the characteristics I see of businesses that do manage to stay in the room of renewal are just two things. One is they celebrate, but they never over-celebrate. But the big one is, you talk to anyone, absolutely anyone in that company, and you say, oh, you're doing well, aren't you? And you get the same reply. And the reply is, yes, but we can do better. It's in the DNA, it's in the culture. You know, I get small businesses owners who say to me sometimes when I ask them, what's your business purpose? And I get, oh, I'm a lifestyle business. You know, I don't buy lifestyle business because that feels like you've metaphorically put your feet up. Businesses only grow if you make them grow. And if you do nothing to them, they contract. That's the way it works. So getting in that room of renewal is incredibly important. And post-COVID, it's even more so because you are challenging everything. Juanita, who's on now, and my business partner and I, we've just rewritten both our books post-COVID. And one of the things we're saying, you must have no stupid rules, because people won't go along with rules that don't make any sense anymore. You've got to renew those. You've got to look at absolutely everything you do to make sure you genuinely are in that room of renewal. So there we are. That's pretty well my lot for this morning, but I'd just like to finish, if I may, just with a little word about business leadership, because for me, there are three things you need as a business leader, and they're all heart things, they're not head things. You've got to believe. If you do not believe in whatever it is you're doing, you're going to be sussed. You're going to be sussed by your employees, you're going to be sussed by your customers, you're going to be sussed by your investors. And you've got to believe with a passion. You know, passion is not something you leave at home. It should be oozing out of the pores of your skin. Passion is infectious. People follow people with passion. But probably the most important of all is you've got to have courage. Our job as business leader is to take risks. We've got to have the courage to take those risks, to take considered risks, to maybe post-COVID tear up our entire employee rule book and start again on the basis of what actually matters. Do we really need 9 to 5? Maybe we don't. Not for everybody anyway. You need to be looking at the offerings to your customers. Is this what they now want? Is it the same as it was before? And you've got to be out there prospecting like there's no tomorrow, because there aren't the same customers as there were before. There's new ones and there's some that have disappeared. I think the most exciting world to be in is business. I think you're very lucky We are very lucky, every single one of us, to be involved in business. But what I would say to you is, if you can focus on the things that we've talked about this morning, I'm going to guarantee to you, your business is going to absolutely fly. May I just, as I mention them, these are the two books Juanita and I have totally rewritten. They're post-COVID. They've got lots of post-COVID considerations. You can get them on my website, our website, or on Amazon, and you're very welcome. Thank you.
So, Roger, thank you so much. Some really interesting and stimulating thoughts there.